Okay, let's take a look at section 5.7, equations and inequalities with rational numbers. In this lesson, we're going to look at an alternative way of solving equations that have fractions and decimals in them, as opposed to what we did last lesson. So first of all, we want to look at our denominators, 6, 2, and 4, and we are going to clear the fractions. That's what this lesson's about. So we want to find the LCD of 6, 2, and 4, which would be 12. So I'm going to multiply everything by 12. So essentially this is 12 times negative 5 over 6x plus 12 times 1/2 equal to 12 times 3 over 4. So what I've done here is just distribute this 12 into each of these terms, pretty similar to the distributive property. Now in doing that, this is really 12 over 1 times negative 5 over 6. We have miniature multiplication, so things are going to cancel. This becomes a 2, this becomes a 1. And I have 2 times negative 5, so that's negative 10x, because my denominators are 1. Now I move on to the next fraction. I have 12 over 1 times 1/2, 1, 6. 6 times 1 is 6. All of that's over 1, so it's just 6. And over here, 12 over 1 times 3 over 4, that's 1, that's a 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And what I have now is negative 10x plus 6 equals 9. I have no more fractions, and from here on out, it should be a pretty straightforward solve to find x by itself, because we've been solving equations so much. I do all of the inverse operation work, and I end up with x equal to negative 3 over 10. And that's my answer. All right, let's try letter B. Let's go through the process again. I need the LCD of 16, 8, and 4, which would be 16. Now again, if you maybe you didn't realize 16 is the right answer, maybe you said 32, that's fine too, that would work. You just have higher values when you get to this step where you have your equations. So we're going to multiply everything by 16. So that's really 16 times 7 over 16x minus 16 times 3 over 8 equal to 16 times 3 over 4. I go through and have my miniature little multiplication fraction problems. 16 go away. I'm just left with 7x. Minus, that becomes a 1, that becomes a 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And over here, 16 over 1, 3 over 4. That's a 1, that's a 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So now I'm able to add 6 to both sides. 7x comes down, and over here I have 18. Divide by 7, divide by 7. X is equal to 18 over 7, which would simplify to 2 and 4/7, because 7 goes into 18 twice, that's 14, and you have 4 left over, so 4/7. All right, I'm going to step through these a little bit faster. I'm only going to do A and C just for time's sake, but again, we want to find our common denominator. In this case, it's going to be 10, so that's 10 times 1/2 x plus 10 times 7 over 10 equal to 10 times 4 over 5. My common denominator is 10, so now, I'm multiplying everything by 10, and in doing that, everything is going to cancel. 5 times 1 is 5x. Over here, my 10's cancel, and I just have 7 that comes down. And over here, 10 over 1 times 4 over 5, that cancels. I get 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So I have no more fractions, and I subtract 7. Go ahead to solve. 5x equals 1. Divide by 5. X is equal to 1/5. In letter C, a good denominator, or the LCD of these values looks like it would be 36, so I'm going to go with that. 36 times negative 2 over 9 equal to 36 times 3 over 4x minus 36 times 1 over 6. See what's going to cancel? It's going to be 1, that's going to be a 4, so 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. This is going to be a 1, this is going to be a 9. 9 times 3 is 18x. This is going to be a 1, this is going to be a 6. 6 times 1 is 6. So negative 8 equals 18x minus 6. And just double check that all of your work is correct, and it looks good there. So we're able to add 6 to both sides. I have 18x that comes down here because those cancel. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. I'm going to divide both sides by 18. And I get x equal to negative 1 over 9, because I'm going to simplify negative 2 over 18. All right, now we're going to move on to the next part, solving an equation by clearing decimals. So what you do here is you want to see, we don't want these decimals in here. It's going to be easier if we get rid of them. So we look to see how many place values this goes out. This goes out to the tenths, this goes out to the hundredths, this goes out to the tenths. So if I multiply everything by the furthest out that our decimals are going, so the hundredths place, I look to see how far the farthest decimal goes out, which is 2 spaces, the hundredths. If I multiply everything by 100, that's going to get rid of them. So really, just like we saw above, this is 100 times 2.3 equals 100 times 5.14 plus 100 times 0.8 m. Now if you know, when you multiply anything by a power of 10, like we have 2 zeros, that's going to move my decimal place 2 spaces. And that kind of relates to what we did with scientific notation, so we saw that there. 100 times 5.14, 2 spaces, so now we have 514, plus 100 times 0.8, so 2 spaces, that's going to be 80 m. And notice, now I don't have to worry about subtracting, getting my decimals lined up, nor do I have to worry about dividing by decimals later down the road. So I'm ready to go and solve. Subtract 514, subtract 514. I'm going to do on the side, 514 minus 230. It's going to be 411, so that's 8. That was a 4, so 284. Negative 284 is equal to 80m divided by divide by 80, divide by 80. So I find that m is equal to negative 284 over 80. I can divide both of those by 2, and when I do that, I get negative 142 over 40. I can divide both of those by 2, I get negative 71 over 20, and from here I can turn that into a mixed number, negative 3 and 11/20. Okay? Alright, letter B. Let's see what this one's going to be multiplied by. This goes out to the tenths, the hundredths, so again we're going to multiply everything by 100. And really this means you're distributing that 100 in. So if you want to write it out, it might help you to see it. 100 times 2.2b times 100 times 3.64 and 100 times 8.486. That might help you see what you're actually doing. So when I multiply everything by 100, I get 220b minus 364 equal to 846. Okay? And the good thing here is, now that we have this straight equation, I think we should be good to go in solving that. So I'm going to leave it at that step. You would not be done with the problem, though. Make sure you know that. From here you add 364 to both sides, and you go ahead with the work necessary to get b by itself. But again, I just want to make sure we really understand the how you go about solving the equations by clearing the fractions. So on this page, on these ones, I'm just going to say what we would multiply by and tell you what you would get so that we can move on to example 3. So in the first one, this goes out to the tenths, nothing, tenths, so I'm going to multiply everything by 10. So it's going to be 10 times 2.3m minus 10 times 11 equals 10 times negative 29.4. 10 times 2.3 is 23m. 10 times 11 is 110. 10 times negative 29.4 is negative 294. Solve the equation, m equals whatever the answer is. Okay, this one you're going to multiply, this goes out to the tenths, nothing, tenths. So you're going to multiply everything by 10. When you do that, you get 53m minus 60 equal to negative 272. Solve it, m equals the answer. In letter C, this goes out to the tenths, hundredths, hundredths. So the farthest out we're going is 100. And again, this is where I'm saying in B and C, if you can just visually see what you're going to get by moving the decimal place 2, you don't necessarily have to write it out, distribute it into both. I'll understand that you know that process. So here, negative 1.2 times 100 is negative 120 because we're moving it 2 spaces, m. 1.25 is now 125, and 0.77 is now 77. Solve it, m equals your answer. Okay, and again, with equations, you can always substitute your answer back in to make sure you're doing it right. Now the nice thing with solving these inequalities by clearing fractions is you're going to do it, we can kind of bypass these because you're going to do it the same way you did equations of the page before, only instead of an equal sign, now we have a less than or equal to. So the one thing you want to remember with these, you would go ahead, get your common denominator, which is 8, distribute it into everything. And then from here, the only thing you want to keep in mind is that if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch your sign, meaning the inequality sign. So you must switch the inequality sign. So if you would go through this process and divide by negative 4, your answer, you have to change the sign to that direction. Okay? Have a good one. Nice job, guys.